All right. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, where you're from. You can throw your LinkedIn handle or whatever else you'd like to share. I see a lot of familiar names. Um, some folks I am just getting to know, but I do recognize a lot of these names on here. Of course, this is from the Facebook group that I did most of the presentation for this, so that's why I recognize a lot of the names. Uh, just a little bit of housekeeping before we get started. Unless you are speaking, if you could turn off your audio input and mute yourselves, that'll help with some of the background noises, etc. So thank you. Thank you for that. Okay. Well, welcome to this session on next level reporting from Razor's Edge. And I'll talk a little bit about myself and why we're here and what the goal of this larger project is. This is not a one and done session. This is meant to be an ongoing development. Not that everything is going to be a live webinar, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. I just wanted the opportunity to do this live for kind of a kickoff, and we'll cover all of these details in a bit here as we move along through the program. About me, I'm Dave Woodley. Like probably a lot of you, maybe all of you, even though I do have a little bit of a career, a little bit of a side gig as a consultant, as a media creator. I am primarily a worker in the trenches, like a lot of you. I have spent 25 years in higher education and nonprofit fundraising, and I've learned an awful lot. And during this time, I felt a need to share some of what I've picked up with the greater community out there because I see a real need for it. I do run a blog, Donorology, and that is available at the website and the YouTube channel listed down below. I do run a small consultancy. I am not presenting to you today as a consultant. I am presenting today as a co-laborer in the field of data reporting and visualization. Okay, about this picture, I recently came back from Disney World, and out of the 10,000 pictures my family and I took, this was our second trip to Disney World. This was my favorite, if for no other reason. This was at 6 in the morning, and we were part of a pampered chef incentive trip that my wife had earned, and they had a session of meet the characters for breakfast. And 6 a.m., that's a terrible time for me. But as it was, one of the characters was a character that kind of maybe speaks a little bit more to me from the film Inside Out, which is it's kind of a nice a nice representation of mental health related issues. And I can't think of a better way to start the day except to be hanging out with Joy. So Joy is the personification of one of the emotions in the movie, and it's really necessary if I'm getting up at 6 a.m., I have to go into it with a good attitude, or the day is miserable. So why are we here? I decided to offer this session up a few weeks ago after the good folks at Prenger Solutions offered a webinar called Making the Most of the Built-in Reporting Solutions to Razor's Edge. And I love the people at Prenger. Austin and Stacy are some of the best at what they do. They are the dynamic duo. But I thought between working with the built-in solutions to Razor's Edge and then the numerous sessions that were at Blackbaud Developer Days, Dev Days, which was also a few weeks ago, there was something kind of missing. All of those sessions were really about just jumping into the pool, just literally throwing yourself in. And it was sort of an expectation that you're just ready to go. And I think there needs to be a little bit more focus there, a little bit more thought on the undertaking of reporting outside of Razor's Edge. And again, this is me sharing my experience over the last 25 years or so. Again, if you've just joined us, if you could mute your audio unless you are speaking. And by the way, if you want to throw in some questions, some comments, I welcome them. But until that point, I ask, please uh, mute your audio. It'll make things a little bit smoother for everyone. So, this is why we're here to talk about, all right, for one reason or another, the solutions inside of Razor's Edge for reporting, they there's something to them that just demands more. And you know that the option exists to go outside of it, but to go outside of Razor's Edge for reporting. But what does that look like? And I recommend doing more than just, diving into the deep end of the pool. And you can save yourself an awful lot of trouble by doing that. So, um, let's go ahead and take a look at what that is going to look like. And I think the operative theme that runs throughout this presentation, the presentation by the good people at Prenger Solutions, and a lot of the presentations that were at BB Dev Days is, what is the essence of reporting? And it's a little bit, I think, misunderstood in my experience among leadership, among stakeholders who just want a number, and they're preoccupied with a question that shouldn't necessarily be the first question. Let's throw out this scenario right here. Um, I recently had presented for the umpteenth time a version of this sort of duality of reporting, which is, and this isn't exactly the Razor's Edge vernacular for it, but it's pretty similar, which is gifts raised and gifts received. And one number is 2.3 million and the other is 3.1 million. And maybe these two different terms mean something to you. I hope that awareness is there. But to a lot of people who work in nonprofit fundraising, certainly those who don't work with the data day in, day out, this distinction, maybe it's not so much, maybe it's not understood. And so what's the question that follows this? Which one is right? Which number is the correct number? How many of you have ever heard that? Show of hands. Have you ever come across that whenever you present, more than one? more than one number. The question is, uh, what what what's the right one? And it's sort of the wrong question because one of these numbers is referencing cash and pledges or cash and commitments, and one is about cash in the actual pledge payments or cash through the door. And so the question of which one is right or which one is accurate is kind of misleading because they're both right. They both have validity. The problem is they're looking at it from different perspectives. They're looking at fundraising success from different perspectives. And what you have to keep in mind is that in presenting your reporting and presenting your numbers, it's important to keep a few ideas in the forefront, which is good reporting is more about methodology and consistency. The methodology of here's what we're going to count, here's the things that get counted in our counting regime, and then be able to repeat that consistently. And so this is where things start to break down, though, when it comes with some elements of built-in reporting solutions, because there are issues of methodology and consistency that quickly reveal themselves, okay? So what is the argument for external reporting? There's reasons of necessity and growth about why it's good to think about going outside of Razor's Edge for your external reporting. In an ideal world, in an ideal world, I think you would hope you never had to do that. You would hope the tools that are built in would be good enough to carry you through so that the reporting tools and the data in the database, they represent a singular
Mhm.
source of truth. They represent a single viewpoint of accuracy, of veracity, and that's certainly ideal, but the reality is there's issues. I've been a Razor's Edge user for 25 years, and there are limitations, there are oversights, there are just outright bugs that have been a part of the Razor's Edge reporting tools for decades. And I think that you can hope Blackbot is going to fix this, but it might be a little hoping in vain. So what do you do about that? Well, let's take a look. Some of the reasons of necessity where external reporting might be a good thing. And in just about every report under the standard reports options, this is true of the ones that are showing up in web view and in database view originally. And certainly all the little widgets, whether it's an insights designer or these little thumbnails that now you get to place in your home page, there's kind of a lack of transparency what's happening under the hood. It's like they generate a number and the number doesn't look super familiar to you. You can fiddle around with it maybe a little bit, but intuitively you know, hey, this number is showing something different than the rest of my solutions for reporting. So what do you do about that? If a stakeholder, a leader, maybe the CEO, a board member, says, okay, what's with some of these numbers? How did you arrive at these numbers? And you aren't able to explain adequately what's going on, that's a lack of confidence. Leadership can look at the inability to explain some of those numbers as maybe the person doesn't know what they're doing. Maybe the database is broken. Maybe there's bugs. And then you have a whole new slew of problems to deal with. So there's definitely some challenges there. If the built-in solutions don't deliver, these accurate results or what your users are expecting them to see or what you're expecting them to see, it becomes really easy to just dismiss them and very tempting to say, you know what, we're just going to have to uh, do something different here because the trust just isn't there. I think there's also a lot of issues, and this comes up nearly every week in the Razor's Edge group, the Facebook group, that the reporting is too limited. There's a need to inject data fields in the reporting that just don't exist in the reporting options. Okay, it's great that I can report by gift type and gift subtype, but what if what I really want to do is break it down by gift code or payment method? Okay, well, you might have some challenges there. You need greater control, you need a greater level of precision, and while Insights Designer started out as a good tool, I had a lot of high expectations for it. It didn't grow. It didn't scale. And it effectively became a tool that is stuck in time. And so the visualizations tend to be a little bit too basic. Now, so yeah, one comment that came up on here, well, is the problem blackballed? And that's a distinct possibility. I can assure you, after 25 years of working with Razor's Edge, um, if a result in a report comes up and you kind of cock your head a little bit and throw up an eyebrow and then shake your head, there's probably reasons for that are, again, there's logic that is taking place that you don't quite get to see. It's not that the number is wrong, it's that you're not seeing the whole picture of how the number was computed. Now, yes, there are a few situations, and these are long-standing bugs, but they're not common, where the report is just simply wrong. There is a flaw in the SQL. There is a flaw in the query language. And I have pointed out no less than six of these over the last 25 years to Blackbaud. And the response is almost always, you're correct, but the problem is so small, they're not going to address it. That's deflating. That's disappointing. And so, great. Does that mean I can use this solution or not? And probably your off the cuff response is no, I can't use this. If I don't have confidence in the number, I'm not going to use it. I think there's also um, sometimes a lot of confusion around the way some reports and the Insights Designer tool address the issue that you're trying to report on. It's from an angle that isn't quite what you want to do. And I many times have been flummoxed with, well, I want, yes, this is a gift report technically, but I'm trying to see it in the context of constituency, And the way that Blackbaud is approaching this just is a little off. It's not quite what I'm going for. So there's a lot of warning signs when you start to go down that path. And this isn't meant to be like a checklist or anything, but if any of these sound familiar, you've probably made the decision already, or you're thinking about making the decision to jump to some sort of external reporting process.
Now we're talking.
What's that? Okay. Um, if there's questions about the internal solutions reporting that you can't answer, it's probably time to think about doing something different. Not only are the results inexplicably unexpected, you can't replicate those results no matter what you do. Again, that's the confidence issue. There may be leadership needs or business process needs that internal reporting um, it's not going to get you there where you need to be. Business process needs, like for instance, we have to run a sort of a highly modified version of the batch commit report. And the way it shows isn't what our accounting team needs. And there was no way to modify it to show that. So we had to go outside of the system to
Really?
actually make that happen. The built-in tools won't reveal the truths or the perspectives that you need. And this is again an issue of sometimes the company sees the issue from one perspective. You really need to see it from a different angle. Now, there are some other reasons that aren't necessarily about necessity, and they're more about your growth as an organization or your growth is independently, individually, as a practitioner of data management, as a practitioner of data science, data governance. And that is you want to understand your data better. You understand it through the lens of your the user interface, but that user interface sometimes it's not clear how it's connecting all of the pieces of the data. And sometimes maybe that's a good thing because if you actually did get a full picture of all of the thousands, hundreds, upwards of 1,000 SQL tables that make up Razor's Edge, you would probably find it a little bewildering, but still, you know there's a relationship between constituents and records and gift records, between gift records and appeal records, between gift records and fund records, etc. But it's not always clear where that relationship is actually taking place. You might not understand what you're doing with the tools in the interface. That is, you follow the instructions, but that's what you're doing. You're just going through a checklist. You can't quite follow along what is the rationale behind it, that there's things taking place that, again, you're going through the motions. It's going to give you a number, but you aren't able to put yourself in the position where you can actually explain that number. When all of that is happening, you do start to naturally ask questions if your data is adding value to the organization at all. There's the inherent value of your data is a record of everything that's happening. But beyond that, you can use your data in many other ways to help your nonprofit, to help your fundraising. And I think that was really a theme throughout BB Dev Days. Last, and I think this is probably the best reason to actually go beyond the built-in reporting solutions, is you want to tell a story using your data. And if you're forced to tell the story using reporting tools that aren't that are creating elements of the story that you really don't want to show, that's a liability. It's sort of like writing a real story, and the tools that you're being given are okay, your story needs to begin with this is a story about a princess and a magic frog. Okay, you don't want to tell a story about a princess. It's not that kind of story, but that's the tool you're being given to work with. So there's lots of cues when you might be ready to do something different. A few quick topics from Dev Days that I want to clarify, maybe add a little bit of color to, because I think it gets glossed over in almost all of the presentations on the topic of the API. If you don't know what an API is, that is the Applied Programmer Interface. It is a toolkit that programmers are given to work with the application, the program, to go be underneath the interface, to peel it away, sort of like opening up the hood of a vehicle, and you work with the innards of your application directly. You can work with the data in Razor's Edge directly instead of through the user interface. Okay, Blackbaud pushes the API hard. And by the way, I mean, I am a fan of the API. I think it's great. I think it does come with a few significant liabilities, though. But make no mistake, the API is the future. This is the toolkit that Blackbaud has out there right now for users to not only extend the ability of Razor's Edge and their other products, but also for you to go underneath the hood of Razor's Edge and work with the data in a multitude of ways. What are some of the issues? Well, the API can be challenging in a lot of ways. Most of you are not coders. That's just going to be the reality. And while you can use a low-code application like Power Automate to do all sorts of cool and amazing things with the data, it's still a sense of, and I get this a lot. There's a lot of resistance to the idea of I don't have time for that. It's hard enough to keep up with it's hard enough to keep up with my just the regular day-to-day job duties I have. I don't have time really to pick up what is in essence a really technical undertaking with working with the API. The API is limited in many ways. You're limited to being able to work with only a subset of the fields in Razor's Edge to begin with. And it's great if the field you need to work with is a part of the API, but if it's not, it's kind of a dead end. Maybe the thing you're looking for gets added in down the road per the comment. Maybe it doesn't. And Blackbaud, they give some guidance on what's coming over and what's not, but I think sometimes they're a little cagey in their response. Um, if you're working with the API through Power Automate, and for instance, you want to generate whole queries and query exports rather of your data, you have size limits that are out there. And Power Automate can only deal with files of approximately 52 megabytes in size and 104 megabytes in size natively by default. There's a way you can extend that, but it produces kind of a junky product when you do that. It's called chunking. I don't want to get into that right now. But I bet a lot of you have had this issue before where you're trying to run an export or a query export, and you're told this is too big. You can't we can't finish this request for you. And then you're just kind of left there to, shrug your shoulders and, okay, what now? So that's some potential issues there. Also, to kind of put a wrapper around all of it, a veto power is there may be industry, regulatory, or institutional compliances that may not allow you to crack your application open and just start messing with the internal guts of Razor's Edge. I've worked with, had discussions with numerous institutions that have this issue. Usually it's an institutional issue, it's just a policy of the institution, but that doesn't make it any easier to deal with the issue. So sometimes the API just isn't the thing. It's not going to work for you. Um, I think though it is summing all of it up again. Okay, if you have to learn the API and Power Automate and a new reporting tool, which is kind of how a lot of these sessions at BB Dev Days went. They just said, "Oh, this is great. This is easy. You don't have to worry about query and exports and having to run it every day or, once a week or whatever. You just use the API and you plug it in and it's just like magic and everything is up to date." And they gloss over the fact that that's a lot of learning. And I do see value in it. I really do. I think it is great to learn all of these things, but it's a pretty heavy lift for a lot of nonprofits. So maybe it's not going to work for you. Uh, okay, a few steps in getting to uh, a, a a glide path for working with your data in developing reporting solutions. This is not meant to be an exhaustive list of everything you need to consider, but I think it does largely address the issues of in kind of top level. Uh, Identify the problem, challenge, or need for external reporting and understand why and how the internal solutions won't work. This is kind of what we've just been doing, but you need to look at it on a per instance basis. Identify what data is needed and with what frequency it's needed. And this is kind of an issue too. If you're just answering a question from a CEO or a board member, this might be something you only have to do once. But if the expectation is you have to run this every week, every day, okay, you got to think about that. Devise a pipeline or a series of steps for how the data is going to safely move from Razor's Edge to a secure environment where you can work with it. There's two kinds of security you have to be concerned with. Data in motion, which is moving of the data between places, and data at rest, which is it's going to stay here while I connect my business intelligence program, and that's it. Okay, you have security issues right off the bat, and you do have to think about them. Choose a reporting tool that meets your needs that staff can work with. It doesn't do any good to get a tool if you don't have some ability, some time, some resources to be able to learn it, to work with it. And a tool that's appropriate for your organization's resources. You can go absolutely nuts with some of the features levels of Tableau and Power BI, but that may very well completely break your budget of your institution. And there's options for dealing with this on multiple levels. Lastly, and most importantly, document. Document everything. It doesn't matter if you're documenting all of these steps on Microsoft Word, Google Docs, Notion, Basecamp, GitHub, just that you're making the endeavor to document, to create a history of what led you from the need to start external reporting to the actual act of external reporting. We already covered step one, but you just need to do it on a per instance basis. But let's talk a little bit about getting the data and some of the pitfalls that are out there. All the reporting in the world will not do you any good if the data is not in good shape. Now, it's kind of a paradox because one of the great things that external reporting does is it can help you see right off the bat where some of the problems with your data are. For instance, let me see if I can snap out of this for just a second. I pulled a list of different ways that my home city is spelled out in Razor's Edge in different records, different address records. Eagle River, straight and forward, right? No, it is not. Due to sloppy data entry, import errors, lack of attention, this is crazy. Now, the problem is the human brain, you understand what's going on right away, but your data intelligence program is not going to understand this right off the bat. Uh, AI-driven solutions might, but they might not, or they might not do it completely as well as you would like. Okay, so um, is the data in one place? Ideally, everything exists within the database. I think I think every institution I've seen to at least a very small extent has reasons or has had reasons in the past to, well, I have to keep this thing in a spreadsheet though. There's just no way to capture it as data within the system. If you have to go that direction, I think everybody in the universe is going to sympathize with you. But ideally, this is what you want to shoot for is a singular location. If you can't do that, again, documentation becomes critical. Do you have security handling procedures in place? And what is your data privacy and sharing policy and process? So it's not just, okay, I've got this file of all constituents and all the related constituent fields in an export that I'm going to work with. That's got to stay somewhere. And you have to have some sort of process to work with that, like making sure the computer is accessible only to individuals that need access to it, that perhaps the file is read only, that multi-factor authentication is installed with a strong privacy, a strong password policy. This is stuff that is generally addressed at the institutional level, but maybe you might have to be the person that forces these considerations into existence. A few things to consider in getting your data, and then we'll talk about some specific issues here. Um, think carefully about what you're trying to achieve. Think carefully about the problem you're trying to solve. Is it a business intelligence point, maybe from a stakeholder? Is it process support? Is it strategic insights? Because the way in which you are going to think about what data you need, it might change. Razor's Edge has the ability to summarize data. You run a constituent export and you say, I don't need to see every gift this person is given. I just need the summary of how much that gift amount is. Okay, you can do that. You can certainly do that. It may slow your process of getting it out of Razor's Edge, but you can definitely do that as an alternative to let's say downloading all gift records ever and then aggregating those by constituent. have clear expectations about what success looks like and how much time you should spend on the endeavor. It's really easy to go down rabbit holes when it comes to external reporting. And I have seen dozens of examples over the years of what you thought was going to be a very simple report to create, and hundreds of hours later, you still don't have it quite figured out. So, in advance, what's a reasonable amount of time and resources to spend on this issue? And, maybe you can address that or massage it down the road if you hit that brick wall, but have some idea up front of what is just a reasonable amount and what is a time suck. What data do you need what data do you require to address that need? This is thinking in terms of granularity, in terms of record type, of what format that you might need that data in. For an example, um, you all are familiar, I'm guessing, with query and export. Most everybody has that understanding. Traditionally, you're probably told the query is what you use to define the population of records, and export is what you need. That's what you want to know about that population of records. Okay, that's common. Um, Here's a problem to think about, though. Let's say I want a list of constituent IDs and all of the constituent codes so I can do some analysis. Okay, if you do an export and you say, I want to see the primary code and then I want to see the next three constituent codes, because constituents can have more than one constituent code, you're going to get something that looks like this. You will get four columns of constituent codes and the ID number. Now, if you try to filter on this, you've got to filter on four columns here. That's crazy. Query sees the issue differently, and you do have the ability to export from within query. Query export sees it not as an issue of columns running across the page, but instead of rows running down the page. And so you can say, well, right off the bat, well, okay, but now I have duplicates. Now I have ID number one four times and ID number two twice, ID number three times. But if what you're doing is enacting a filter across all constituents, and let's say we want just volunteers, and we're going to filter just on volunteers, okay, that's going to take care of the duplicates. And that's what external reporting largely does. So sometimes the data needs to come out as an export. Sometimes it may need to come out as a query export if that's your chosen method. Okay. And regardless of what method you use and how you get it,
What the fuck?
trial and error
Huh.
is going to be your friend. Trial and error is going to teach you more about your, it's going to teach you more about your data than if you nail it on the first attempt. Now, I know I just said, well, hey, you need to spend a reasonable amount of time, and that is still true. But I think within that, you have the room to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. Okay, a few quick words on data sources. Query and exports you're probably all familiar with. You're comfortable with them. And I am just going to say, despite the power of the API, despite the thoroughness of getting a copy of your SQL tables, query and exports is probably still the old school method, is still going to be your most reliable method. If you have the Q module to run queries and exports for you, that's great. You might need a little bit of training on how to use it. But in general, I think everybody gets queries and exports. Generally, this is enough to replicate standard reports. The SQL backups, which is the underlying data tables of Razor's Edge, if you're willing to pay for it, and you're willing to learn SQL Server and structured query language, great, because that used to be the fullness of your database. Literally all of the building blocks that Razor's Edge has, you're getting the entire kit. Now it's changed a little bit though, because WebView creates data tables that are outside of the database view data tables. And so now you're kind of in this dual mode where you have to consider your data needs for the stuff that lives at web view level, and you have to consider the stuff that lives in database view level. It is by far the hardest to work with. The API is kind of in the middle. Almost certainly, you need some understanding of Power Automate if you're going to use this as your data extraction tool. The problem is the API, again, it's kind of limited. I think everybody's wanting a better solution that still uses the power of the API, but I don't want to have to learn a program which has me work through 10, 15, 20, 30 different steps of automation to get what I need. I'm going to come back to that in just a second. There's also the web data connector, which is powered by the API, but at a different level. Now, Blackbaud pitches the Power BI, the Microsoft Power BI web data connector, and they have reasons for doing that. They have a special relationship with Microsoft, and they pitch Microsoft products in this regard. It's super easy to work with once you connect it to Razor's Edge. But of all of the options, it is the most limited because even within all of the fields offered by the API, the web data connector uses the smallest number of those fields. So it may not be adequate for your needs. It's also kind of slow to work with. Now, the official Power BI data connector that's offered by Blackbaud that is really built by the Blackbaud community. It is not a Blackbaud product per se. It's not the only one. There's other companies that have other versions of a web data connector. And some of them are better, and some of them are for other programs than just Power BI. They're for Tableau, they're for Looker Studio, they're for Crystal Reports, et cetera, et cetera. You're going to have to pay for those, of course. I do have to think, based on the sessions that I did listen to at Dev Days, that there is something else that's being talked about. And this was referenced by about a year ago, an announcement from Blackbaud that they are deepening their relationship with Microsoft in the realm of Microsoft's super data warehouse product called Fabric. And it's it's not easy to work with, but it does basically give you the fullness of the API, the web data connector, in a way that you don't have to do quite as much gymnastics to actually get to accessing your data the way you want to. This is just a guess. I have no insider knowledge. I'm just reading the tea leaves, but everything points to Blackbot is aware none of these solutions are perfect that's on the screen. And things that have been hinted at would just suggest there's something else in the wings. Uh, Very simple data pipeline using query and exports, which is getting started what I recommend. It's also going to be the least expensive. Run the query or export, preferably using Q because it can take a long time to run queries and exports sometimes. This saves it to Blackbaud file storage. You can automate an SFTP system to deliver your files to a local environment. SFTP is Secure File Transfer Protocol. You can then use once it's in the Blackbaud SFTP site, you can then use any number of secure methods like Power Automate. If you're in Windows, you can also use WinSCP and Task Scheduler, which are both free, by the way. You can also use, if you're on a Mac, you can use Transmit and Automator on either of those operating systems, you can use scripts to make it happen, and that gets into more technical levels of doing things, but it doesn't necessarily have to cost you money to be able to get your data in an automated sort of way, so you're not doing it manually every time. Okay, this is just a sample. Later in this series, I'm going to show other methods. Lastly, let's just talk for a few minutes about business intelligence tools and services compared. All tools have authoring environments where you build your reports and online environments where you can consume the reports. And their purpose is to organize, distribute, and share reports, dashboards, and visualizations. These things would only be useful if you can share them. That's what their entire systems are about. The features vary tremendously, and the more features you want in your service, likely the more it's going to cost. But that doesn't mean it necessarily has to cost anything. All of them have basic to advanced dashboarding and reporting abilities. Some of them do it better than others, and personal preference is going to come into play. There are literally hundreds of points of comparison. I will give a brief recommendation. This cost comparison, which is the only point of comparison I do want to throw out there for your information, and by the way, I will share these slides to the event record on the Facebook page. Uh, Tableau. Uh, Tableau is kind of one of the original visual intelligence tools. It does have a desktop tool. It does have web editing. It does allow a service that publishes the reports to the web. You can take files locally and share them between users like you did in the old days with Excel and PowerPoint. Email me that file. Okay, you can still do that. Um, the price is, kind of the most broad, I would say. There is the public edition, which is free, and you can save files locally to your hard drive, and you have all the power of Tableau Desktop pretty much through that. Or you can pay upwards as much as $75 for desktop authoring, and that might seem like a lot, but I'm going to come back to that in just a second. Nonprofit discounts, yes, but they are a little bit limited through TechSoup. There are some limitations that they throw out. Recently, Tableau has also released their Tableau Plus environment, which is their web-only environment. It's the next generation of Tableau tools. They're still baking, they're not done yet. I'm not going to recommend going in that direction, but it does exist. Power BI, which is what Blackbaud pushes out there. Again, that's because of the special relationship that Microsoft has with Blackbaud. It does have a desktop authoring tool, which is free. It does have web editing for the web publishing service, and yes, you can share files. There are different levels of services, and at $24 for the premium service in Power BI compared to $75 per user per month for Tableau, a lot of people just do a quick math and say, hey, Power BI is cheaper. But if you realize that most people aren't going to be making reports, and maybe there's only going to be two or three people making reports in your organization, uh, once you get to around 30 or 40 users across your whole organization, Tableau actually becomes cheaper. Until you get to about 400 users, and then Power BI actually becomes cheaper. So my note at the top is just a warning. You've gotta do the math. Lastly is Looker Studio, which is entirely web. This is by Google. It's originally meant for web analytics, but you can use it for just about anything in terms of visual intelligence. It's free. You can go to your Google account right now and you can go to lookerstudio.google.com and you have full access to a reporting solution. You can pay a few dollars extra per month for the pro service, which doesn't extend the abilities of the authoring tool, but it does extend the abilities of the of the web sharing service. No nonprofit discount that I'm aware of here for that extra pro service. Three very different applications. They approach visual intelligence all differently. I am going to say a lot of people go straight to Power BI because I know Excel. There's a lot of similarities between Excel and they can go into Power BI. I think Tableau is probably the easiest to get really productive with fast. And it's only recently that they have had the public edition, which allows for file sharing. So a lot of people just went with Power BI. And I think Tableau has corrected that now and put everything back on even service. Um, my bigger issue with Microsoft is that, there's a lot of critical comments about Blackbaud in the comments here. I haven't read every one of them, but okay, so Blackbaud has issues at multiple levels, and I think everybody would prefer a solution that was all inside of Razor's Edge. And the solution then that Blackbaud recommends is the Microsoft solutions. And I just want everybody to think about the credibility gap that exists there for a minute. The company, which has ostensibly, in my opinion, I think it is a fair statement, has left its customers shorthanded, is now recommending a tool which comes with its own series of learning curves and challenges. And I'm immediately a little bit skeptical about the decision making there. So, um, I don't think there's a wrong choice in this, though. And to prove this, what's the next stage? Taking a cue from my friend Luis Diaz, who runs the Donor Participation Project, a grassroots effort to address shrinking donor participation in nonprofit fundraising. And he is also the inventor of the Annual Fund Toolkit. I'd like to build a fundraising reporting toolkit. And I want to do it in triplicate. I want to produce a number of templates which make your fundraising data useful. That is the entire point of these tools. And so I will build templates in Tableau, Power BI, and Looker Studio. And these templates will be available for anyone to download or make their own web copies of. And hopefully you will learn enough in the process not to be intimidated, but still be acting responsibly with these tools. Future sessions about these developments, I will put them all certainly on at Donorology on the YouTube channel. Some of these I may offer as live webinars, especially where I'm soliciting advice and input, which brings me to my last point, which is, are there any reports or visualizations you would want to see created in the fundraising reporting toolkit getting started? Are there things that you want to see how to do first? You want to address that first, the critical needs that you have, and then you can get into maybe some of the more obscure but still helpful sort of stuff. So I'm completely open to suggestions on this if anybody has anything right off the bat. If not, certainly feel free to post your suggestions on the YouTube channel, or you can do it at donorology.org. You can email me directly. And if you have special projects that you'd even like to, maybe co-author with or produce this. But I think this can be a very powerful reference tool for those organizations that want to get started with external reporting due to the reasons I said earlier, but that you just need some encouragement. You need a model to work from. So that is the shape of this project and where I'd like to go with it. Um, any comments or anything else out there? Okay, I need an event report that groups by ticket type and count for. Okay, this is a good one. Events are huge. Events probably more in, you see the Crystal reports, which by the way, it's still out there. It's not really a great visual analytics platform. It's still a great reporting platform. And I think a lot of people still have a bunch of content out there for it. And maybe we can make this in triplicate plus one and include Crystal report templates out there as well.
Hi, Dave. Is there really a continual use of Crystal Reports template, seeing that they're killing Classic in 2027? That's
Um,
my problem. I have a
it's
lot of custom report. I mean, like
so
five, but
yeah,
I need.
Crystal reports by SAP is still out there.
True, we use that
Yeah,
for our report
it's
server, but to
it's
mine
evo-
real-time data, to go
it's
for real-time data, like straight from RENXT without using the nightly backup,
yeah.
that's the piece I haven't figured out how to connect our SAP server with,
That
you know,
and that's a question of the data pipeline. How do you get your information, your data from the Blackbaud environment to an environment you can work with in your own install of Crystal? It's challenging. It can still be done. You might have to deal with some limitations, uh, but I believe C data, letter C DATA, C data, I believe they make a data connector for Razor's Edge for SAP. That might be something to check out right off the bat.
C data.
Yeah.
This is a company name?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. This is helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Is there an easy way to create a group by report without going to Power BI. Can you explain that a little bit, Rory? Is there an easy way to create a
Yes.
group by? Okay, go ahead.
So I've been using mostly Query, which has gotten me most of what I need. But is there a internal to Razor's Edge tool that will let you do where you can group by, group by donor or group by so that you get the indented fold up groupings?
Okay, so that's I guess you're still asking for, is there a way to do that inside of Razor's
Correct.
Edge
Yes.
using the tools that are built in? That's an interesting question. That's one I would probably put to some of the experts who are really good at pushing the boundaries of internal report solutions. I have to imagine there's got to be some creative ways to do it. I can sure ask some of my contacts and follow up on that.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Would you know if Gravity Forms or through Google Sheets can integrate with Database View? Database View is pretty much a closed platform at this point. So even if integrations did exist at one point, I see no future there. Could be wrong, but I just don't see it. Now, if you're talking again using the API, the toolkits provided by the API, um, and WebView, yes, I see a lot of possibility there. So that's probably what you're going to be looking for.
So, hi, I'm Emily Pellick. I asked the question. So we use Gravity Forms for sponsorship and ticket event registrations. And so I tried looking through like Importacular, but I'm trying to find if there's like a way to integrate it either into WebView or Database View. And you mentioned API. Can you explain API further?
Yeah. That's probably a whole thing that's outside of the scope. I think there's several great sessions, both inside BB Dev Days videos and some other resources that are out there. I'd refer you to take a look at it. But basically, again, the essence of the API is uh, getting working with one application, which is not Razor's Edge, and getting it to work with Razor's Edge by bypassing the user interface. So that other application, let's take Gravity Forms, works directly with the data that's underneath Razor's Edge. I have to imagine it's possible. I certainly know Google Sheets can do it. But again, it goes back to what I was talking about earlier, which is you're going to have to invest a little bit in learning some of the basics of um, Power Automate at the very least, and how it works with the API.
Great.
That's one I can probably point a few specific references to.
Great, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for your time. I hope this is useful. I hope the future of the product is, or the future of the toolkit is going to be useful to you as well. I will post updates on the Facebook group, or you can follow the YouTube channel. And that takes us to the end.
Thanks again, Dave.